Gospel according to Luke. One day, as Jesus was teaching, Pharisees and teachers of the law, who had come from every village of Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem, were sitting there. And the power of the Lord was with him for healing. Some men brought on a stretcher a man who was paralyzed. They were trying to bring him in and set him in his presence, but not finding a way to bring him in because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and lowered him on the stretcher through the tiles into the middle in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw their faith, he said, "As for you, your sins are forgiven." Then the scribes and Pharisees began to ask themselves, "Who is this who speaks blasphemies? Who but God alone can forgive sins?" Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them in reply, "What are you thinking in your hearts? Which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Rise and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the one who was paralyzed, "I say to you, rise, pick up your stretcher, and go home." He stood up immediately before them, picked up what he had been lying on, and went home glorifying God. Then astonishment seized them all, and they glorified God. And struck with awe, they said, "We have seen incredible things today." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There are two sections in Isaiah that are apocalyptic, eschatological. Chapters 24 to 27 and chapters 34 to 35. And so today we get the eschatological apocalyptic section of Isaiah. Once again, as people are interviewed with regard to the fires that are now raging in California, the word again comes up, if you notice, in the news commentaries. It's apocalyptic. Apocalyptic because there's the destruction of the old, leading to now a rebuilding of the new. Destruction, restoration, apocalyptic. And with the apocalyptic eschatological, of course, comes the second coming of Christ. The first reading that Sister Mary of the Compassion read was really the second coming. Notice that you have all of this imagery of rejoicing, exulting. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Second coming. With divine recompense, he comes to save you. The elect will be saved. The reprobate will be damned. Here is your God. He comes with vindication. Those of us who wait for the Lord to come, who live our lives in such a way that we are ready when he comes, he will come to vindicate us before those who have rejected him. And again, beautiful imagery. A highway will be there called the Holy Way. No one unclean may pass over it, nor fools go astray on it. Once again, the judgment of the wise virgins and and the foolish virgins. Those whom the Lord has ransomed will return and enter Zion singing. It's the second coming. Those at the end of the world who have remained faithful will enter into the new Jerusalem. They will meet with joy and gladness. Notice, sorrow and mourning will flee. No more sorrow, no more mourning when Christ comes again. And so in the gospel today, we have once again the first coming, Jesus entering into his humiliation as the Son of Man incarnate, prophesies his second coming with the curing of the paralytic. The paralytic is a symbol of the whole human race. We have all been paralyzed by sin, except our Blessed Mother. All of us have been paralyzed and in need of being restored to the whole of who we are. And notice that these men have faith and they bring their friend to Jesus to be cured. You wonder what went through their minds when instead of curing him right away, Jesus said, your faith or your sins are forgiven. Were they disappointed? Were they expecting something different? But Jesus saw into the heart of this paralytic, and he knew there was no point in physical restoration if there were not, first of all, spiritual restoration. That's the most important. Jesus did not come into this world to cure every illness. We know that he didn't. He cured some. He came into the world to cure spiritual illness. That's why he came. And so, first and foremost, he's going to take care of the soul before he takes care of the body. And so he says, your sins are forgiven. He doesn't ask God to forgive his sins. He says, your sins are forgiven. In other words, he shows his authority as God to forgive sins. And the scribes and Pharisees take this as blasphemy. How dare he impersonate God? How dare he do what only God can do? Well, he can do it because he is God. That's why he can forgive sins. And so he reads their minds and asks them, why do you harbor evil thoughts? But so that you know that the Son of Man has authority to forgive sin, he then gives them the ocular demonstration of his authority. You can't see sins being forgiven, but you can see a paralytic get up and walk. And so he says, so you know that I have power to forgive sin. God would never allow anybody to claim divinity and then do something miraculous like he was going to do. He tells the paralytic, pick up your stretcher and go home. Remember in that first reading, the lame will leap like a stag? Well, here you have it. And in the second coming, when Jesus comes again, there will be no paralytics, no blind, no lame. In the second coming, the elect will be given perfect restoration and perfect happiness in the beatific vision. So we prepare for the second coming, first of all, by coming to Jesus in the sacrament of penance, of reconciliation. There's no greater way you can prepare for the beautiful gift of Christmas than to receive the absolution that God came into the world to give. And if you notice, the friends of the paralytic bring him to the sacrament of reconciliation. What a tremendous gift to Jesus if you could bring one other person this Advent season to the sacrament of reconciliation. What a tremendous gift that would be. God bless you.